We are here, and I hope that you are here to share with me the pride that I feel that for 30 years, our office has been part of this protection order advocacy program, has been standing with survivors, standing for survivors. It's something, I tell you, that most prosecutors' offices don't accept as a responsibility. For us, it's part of our culture. We've been doing it for so long. And it really says where our hearts are, where our priorities are, that we are willing to open up our doors, to commit our resources, to commit some amazing people to the job of meeting with survivors who have summoned the courage. And I often stop to think about what kind of courage it would take to one day say, you know, I've had enough, and I'm afraid, and I need help. The people who have summoned the courage to come to this courthouse or to the Mailing Regional Justice Center to say, I need help. And that is an act of courage, that's an act of heroism, and it only works if there's somebody on the other side to receive them, to listen to their life story, to lead with compassion, and to lead with actual concrete help. So for 30 years, roughly 5,000 people a year that we've helped. Quick, do the math, David. 150,000 people, more or less, that we've helped. That's amazing to think that we've been able to be there for those people. And I've heard the detractors over the years saying, you know, that, hey, protection order, you know, it's just a piece of paper and it doesn't stop a bullet and blah, blah, blah. But we know, because we know that we've helped people in real crisis, that it's not just a piece of paper. It is the invocation of the entire justice system and law enforcement. When a survivor has the courage to come say, can you help me? And we say, yes, we will, and we're going to get this order signed, and we're going to get it online, and then police officers will know, and judges will know. And more importantly, the respondent will know that you are not alone. And while a piece of paper doesn't stop a bullet, we know today, thanks to the work of the Regional Domestic Violence Firearm Enforcement Unit, you say that, it rolls off the tongue, thanks to their work, that the protection order, the civil order, can lead to an order to disarm a dangerous domestic violence abuser during the most dangerous part of the separation. And we know statistically that women who are experiencing chronic domestic violence in homes that have firearms are 5 times more likely to be murdered than women who live in homes while there may be domestic violence, but there are no firearms. And so we know that this effort, we know for the 30 years, and we know the last year where we've been taking guns away from people during this dangerous time, we know that we're saving lives. And it's amazing, and it's just a testament to the compassion and the care of each one of you, and people who have, the many people who have come and worked here and volunteered here and really wanted to be part of this effort. So I couldn't be more proud to be the host for 30 years in this office, and to recommit today to another 30 years or more of providing the service, because it's become an essential part of public safety. And Mr. Martin has convinced me, and I think statistics are, the facts are behind him as well, that domestic violence is the single greatest predictor of future crimes. And it makes sense, because if you're willing to be violent toward the people that you presumably love, I mean, it's no big deal to then go be violent to a stranger. And violent people practice at home, and we know that, and we see that on the rap sheets of all sorts of people that we see coming through our office. So this is an effective intervention point, really crime prevention, public safety, and most important, standing for survivors. So thank you for sharing my pride in the 30 years that we've had this program, and I'm going to turn it over now to the guru of our domestic violence section, David Martin. Thank you, David.
So thank you, and welcome everybody to the King County Courthouse, to the 30th anniversary celebration. You know, it's a great thing, because the King County Prosecutor's Office may be the only prosecutor's office, I know it in the state, but it may be the only prosecutor's office in the nation to offer this type of service, or maybe one of only a few. And we're so happy to celebrate having done that for 30 years. And we're fortunate to be joined by a lot of friends today, friends from the domestic violence community, friends from legal aid. I see so many people here, Bill Braun, people from NJP, our project safety partners, and it's wonderful to see everyone. Scott Summers from the Sheriff's Office, such a critical partner in making sure that protection orders can be actually effectuated. The Seattle Police Department is here. Councilmember Lambert, I saw in back, a very long-time supporter of all things having to do with the protection order program, and we're so grateful for that. Dawn is here, the Salvation Army, and also we have so many alumni from our protection order program who are here. One of our original, well, the founder, Sherry Yates, is here. Ann F. could not be here. And Ann F. did this with Sherry, and also some of the original advocates who were in that program, Lisa Bearhar, Mina Dunlap, and Wendy Ross, who is a current King County Prosecutor's Office. So I just have, I'll go on a little bit because I just have a couple of comments. I wanted to echo what Dan had to say. Protection orders are far more than a piece of paper. Protection orders are about safety, and they are a promise to victims of domestic violence and their children. And years ago, Dan wrote an op-ed about the importance and power of protection orders, and I wanted to quote his op-ed, and he says, "When a victim seeks a protection order, he or she is invoking the power of the system, the protection of the police, and the backing of the courts in an effort to level the inherently inequitable balance of power in an abusive relationship. Obtaining a protection order is not easy. It is arduous, emotional, and risky task for many victims. Most seek orders without legal assistance or means to afford it, and so many need interpreters. The protection order program knows the reality that victims face in obtaining orders, and they know this including the tragedies. Many of you walked into this building past a memorial to Susanna Blackwell and her unborn child with her friends Phoebe Dizon and Veronica Loretta were murdered in this building seeking civil protection. Rebecca Griego and Melissa Batten years ago were murdered seeking civil protection orders. Many have lost their lives. The protection order program has also seen incalculable success. Over 30 years, more than 150,000 have been served by this program. And you think about that. As many victims as the city of Bellevue, more than the city of Bellevue, more than the city of Kent, tens of thousands of victims and their children who went on to a safer and better life because protection orders don't just matter, they work. Protection orders are one of the only legal responses shown through continued public health studies to reduce domestic violence, and we're deeply thankful to the work of the University of Washington for actually studying this courthouse and what happens with protection orders. And we know through their publications in the Journal of American Medicine and having this repeated all over the country that these really are truly effective in reducing domestic violence in the community. An important part of why they're effective here, though, is the tradition of excellence in the Protection Order Advocacy Program, thanks to the work of Sherry, Sandra Shanahan, and now Colleen Mccandless. It has always had many of the best advocates in this region doing protection order work, and today, our protection order program is a remarkable and diverse group of advocates, highly skilled with language, culture, multiple master's degrees in social work, 2 with law degrees, all with years of community-based service to their name before we were fortunate to have them be a part of our program. And POAP continues to build on success. The Protection Order Program has a new, robust, and award-winning partnership called Project Safety, thanks to the state's Office of Civil Legal Aid and the legal aid attorneys and partners who are here today. We are so grateful for your work. We have the new Regional Domestic Violence Firearms Enforcement Team, a partnership with the Seattle Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, the Seattle City Attorneys, born from the work of the Protection Order Program. It's working to keep the promise to victims of domestic violence to disarm offenders. We hope that the next 30 years of this program will do even more for victims and their children to level the imbalance of power in abusive relationships. I am very thankful that you all could join us today, not just for snacks, but to celebrate this great event. And I want to call over my friend Colleen, who runs the Protection Order Program now. Colleen.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate I appreciate you both speaking on behalf of our program and helping us make this happen today. This is a big feat. I think often in this work we don't celebrate loudly our victories, and we see them every day in the clients that we work with. And so this is a really special opportunity. So again, my name's Colleen Mccandless. I'm the new program manager for the Protection Order Advocacy program. I've only been here in this position for about 6 months. So in the tenure of this program, I'm very, very new. But it doesn't take long to learn how special this program is and what it brings to this community. And I think it's been laid by its foundation by our former leadership in this program. Sherry Yates, obviously, helped develop and create this program, as well as Sandra, who's now taking charge of the firearms. And I sat down with Sherry. We had coffee. I just soaked up every bit of words that she had to share with me about where we've come from and what we've done. And so I also wanted to take a moment just to echo David's gratitude and shout outs of gratitude. But first and foremost, I really just want to emphasize my gratitude for the advocates, so many of you out here today that have spent time standing beside survivors in court, assisting petitioners with their petitions, and helping them pick up the pieces or finding their next step in their journey after they leave our office. I also want to just say thank you to law enforcement. I think, they put their lives on the line every day in our city and often don't get a lot of credit for all that they do. But when it comes to domestic violence and serving these orders and responding to our petitioners and to our survivors, they help this process, and they help us continue to provide safety for these petitioners, and I'm just grateful for their work in our community. And I also wanted to just lend my gratitude to the court personnel who often go unthanked. And their job is hard, that what they do day in, day out as objective agents of the court, they do professionally, and they do often with a smile on their face. And they help create this system that helps these victims, though at times, not the entire justice that we want, but they do it with professionalism and grace. And so I just wanted to say thank you to them. So there's so many people involved in this small yet large system that I could continue to thank. It takes many, many hands and many people to make this process work. And I think another part of today is about reflecting backwards and looking at where we've come from. And in my conversation with Sherry, we talked a little bit about what it was like for a survivor before protection orders existed. And this was back in a culture and a society where it was a private matter, right? That private affairs between a man and a woman. And it wasn't something that was brought to light, and when people were reluctant to intervene, whether that be law enforcement or community members. If you go back 30 or 40 years, the silence was deafening. The issue was one that society didn't want to think about, didn't want to hear about, and individual survivors suffered in incredible isolation. It's hard to go back there, I think, to recall how far we've come from and where we plan to go. I too have felt inspired by the Me Too movement and Dr. Blasey Ford, who have stand up as inspiring champions to challenge our current status quo of gender-based violence. But it's also sobering to think how far we have yet to go. To confront sexism, homophobia, power, control, oppression, aggression, and violence in our community. But we stand as agents of change, and we must recall and celebrate where we've come from. And so it took Sherry Yates and the coordination between Eastside Domestic Violence, which is now LifeWire, and Dawn, who created a pilot project to see what would it be like if we put advocates in the courtroom. It was championed by the court. They saw that this was a need in our community, and after they saw Sherry and Ann in court one day a week, they were like, we need more. And they found a way to make that happen, and Norm Mailing bought in, and he was sold on the needs of survivors in our community. And so what did she do after she was hired on full-time? She did what any advocate would do, is she listened to victims. She listened to survivors, and she knew that through them she would find out what would work and what wouldn't work. And so with those 3 objectives that Norm handed her, she opened the doors on December 1st, 1988. And from there on, we've served over 150,000 survivors of domestic violence in our community. And again, many have said protection orders are just a tool, and we can't do these without our advocates, and we can't do it without the support of this community and this office to provide this great resource in our community, as well as our community partners that are so integral in making change. So my last thought I'm just going to leave with is that, we had a petitioner come in about 3 weeks ago in our office, and one of our advocates was working with them, and I was just overhearing because I was sitting, this was in our Kent office, and she came in, you could tell she had just recently been assaulted by someone. And what I overheard her through tears was say that she couldn't believe that this had happened again, and that she was scared of what might happen to her and her children once she left, and what that would look like. That she had tried to come before, it sounded like, or had tried to file before and didn't return at the full hearing. But it seemed like after meeting with our advocate, she was resolved to move forward, and enough was enough. And so she has a long road ahead, just like we do. We have a long road ahead to keep the momentum moving forward. And I just think that we've worked with King County TV, who's here tonight, today, it feels like night, sorry, to help display a visual image of and a real life story of a survivor that was willing to share their story with us, as well as many Sherry Yates, Meryl Cousins, as well as a couple of our advocates and Dan Hatterberg are all on this video. But I think that it just really shows the power of this work and what we do in this community. So please indulge me and listen.
I'm from Zambia. I was born and raised in Zambia. I was in an arranged marriage, which is very common back home. I was 16 years old. He was 42. And I was in arranged marriage because something which is arranged, there's no love. But unfortunately, you have no choice. You're a woman, you have to live with your husband regardless. Because I have to endure a lot of pain and a lot of challenges in my life, dealing with all this domestic violence and trying to find a better place for my kid and a good environment, because I didn't want my kid to be exposed.
In the Protection Order Office, we have open doors, so that means people can come in whenever.
I have to get the protection order in place. Then we came to the King County Courthouse, and then we came to this application to get the protection order.
Usually they're in crisis mode, like something has just happened, and we're usually the first person they tell their story to. So we try to make them feel as safe and comfortable as possible. A lot of times they'll come in with like bruises or marks from an incident that just happened. So we do like a lot of legal work helping them get protection orders, but we also do a lot of counseling as well.
And it's like I've never been in the court before, so I was like so scared, like how am I gonna cope, how I'm gonna do this, but the support that I had, and then it's just encouraged.
So we try to help people file orders to protect them from their abuser and we walk them through that process and how it's going to be in court, and that we'll be there for them like every step of the way.
It was amazing because sometimes you don't really know about the laws and rules and how to get this protection order, so it's always good to have a guideline.
Well, I remember 30 years ago when this idea came up, we thought, well, this is a really great service to the public, but it's not traditional prosecutor role. You know, we charge cases and try people in court and get convictions. But it was the women who were behind this, Sherry Yates in particular, really convinced Norm Mailing at the time, who was the prosecutor, that this would save lives.
Prior to the program, they would go to the clerk's office and they would say, sometimes they didn't even know what to call it. I'm a domestic violence victim, I need to file for something. And they would be handed, as I said, 7 to 9 pages of paperwork.
And it can be really intimidating. There's a lot of check boxes and like legal jargon, and you're also in like a super heightened state of crisis and trauma. So you're just also not just thinking straight.
And if you didn't have a navigator to help you get from the front door to the court and to then make sure that that order is filed and gets in the hands of the police, that's really meaningless.
What was needed were advocates who could actually take the time, sit down and go through the paperwork, listen to the situation that the petitioners were going through, be able to assist them in completing the paperwork, as well as doing some safety planning and providing them resources in the community, because prior to advocates, none of that was done.
A lot of these survivors have never spoken about the abuse, so being able to have someone that they can trust, that believes them, that believes what they're saying, what they have gone through, is really important.
This is like probably the bravest act that they've done, and for you to be able to be there and support them is really huge.
The new element in the last year that we've added to the protection order program is the firearm removal portion of it. And so our advocates are now trained to begin to talk to petitioners when they come in the door. Are there guns in the house? Have you ever been threatened with them? Do you know what they are? We have pictures of them so they can try to identify what they look like. And we will go and ask the court to remove those firearms during the time that we know is most dangerous, during the separation period.
I think there's a much higher level of awareness. The questions that are being asked and the conversations that are happening are at a whole different level from when I started doing this work, and I think especially over the last couple of years.
So after all this separation, and then I have my kids, I have protection order, that's given me the power and the strength, and I was like, okay, there's nothing to stop me from doing what I want. And now I'm so glad that I was part of this community where there's so much help, which is very grateful.